beautiful, Trevor.
That's what the line opened on. Excellent. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Agency Real Talk, where we discuss building, growing, scaling, and having trouble with your agency for real. I'm Trevor.
I'm Tom.
And we're here to talk about blunders and F asterisk, 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 fill in the blank yourself, ups.
There's a couple of different categories we came up with. There's some structure we're going to add to the show for today. And there's three categories of blunders and asterisks ups that we're going to talk about.
When you really show your asterisk in public.
That surprisingly didn't make the list.
That didn't, man.
Shows you category.
I wasn't in the pun space when we were doing this. Wasn't doing the dad jokes. So yeah, I do think it is. It's of course easy to just tell some stories about there was this time I did this thing, and we can all laugh about it. That's fine, but in theory, in Agency Real Talk, we're trying to be instructive as well as hopefully at least a little bit entertaining. So the instructive part of this then is to think about the different scopes of error. And then we'll also tell you about time that we did the dumb thing, but then put that in the parable of what you can learn from it. So I think the first type of error is either people aren't perfect, they did something wrong, or you have a system that isn't really optimal, and so it produces output that's not great. Can you give me an example of one of these kind of lower stakes kind of errors?
I think marketing has got to be the famous example, right? You have a huge email list, you're doing some outbound, and you put the curly brackets in wrong, or you have test somewhere in the subject line.
There you go.
And the intern who happens to have the time to send the email sends the email with the test subject line to a handful of people. Call it one, call it 100,000, whatever it is, it's a mistake. And it's not going to kill the company, not today, but it's a blunder, to say the least.
It's a blunder. I think a lot of these are, you can call them own goals, right? When like it's a forced error, like you didn't have to do it. You could have been smarter. Probably if somebody else had been involved, it would have been smarter. I mean, inevitably, every agency does a couple of these a week. Small ones, hopefully. You set a client's ad budget off by, I just saw on a call today, someone had a client's ad budget off by $50, which is, it's a small error, but when the budget was supposed to be 100, it is off by 50%. But still, like, is anyone going to lose their mind there? No, not really. Even the client spot, like, it's not supposed to be $100. I'm like, you're right, it is. We changed it. Cool. Right? No one's losing their mind over that. Now is a system in place. Should have been different. In this particular case, I happen to know my media buyer's Meta account has been force logging her out every 10 minutes all day. So probably she typed it wrong and then got kicked out before she could fix it. Like, if I see this start to show up more often, I will make a system that's better. But okay, usually fixing it isn't hard, right? We've all gotten that follow-up email after you got the email, "Dear valued customer F name."
Yeah.
That goes, oops, we goofed, right? Or better yet is the promotional email for something where they don't include a link to buy the product. And they go, oops, you get the follow-up, we goofed.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not so bad. Usually, at the moment, so when you're the intern who sent the email to 100,000 people with F name as the name for the people, you think your life is over. Probably. It'll be something you laugh about in a year.
It most definitely will be something you laugh about at some point. Maybe not in a year if you're still sort of running those types of campaigns, but it's definitely something you can laugh about. And I think that enough people have accidentally clicked that button and been on the receiving end of a templated email to know that people mess up sometimes. And the point that we're trying to make here in this first section is that these are mistakes based on systems and processes that could be adhered to or be more structured to be able to adhere to them better. And it's a pretty low effort fix to say, hey, we're not just going to let interns send out campaigns anymore. We're going to have a team member that has done it approve. right? That is a procedural change that you can make that should really change how often that type of mistake happens. And those happen all over the
Yeah.
company, right? Those little extra steps to update your systems so that you don't have that type of issue again.
To give it a backstop, right? Anything that is relatively high value, it's almost always worth having someone other than the person who did it take a look.
Yeah.
Because if I've spent an hour drafting an email, I stop reading it when I look it over, right? I can't make my eyes look at every word anymore. I know what's supposed to be there. You send it to somebody new, they go, "Hey, what's up with this?" And you go, "Thank you," right? Easy systems. Okay, but those are the low stakes ones. Those are the ones that when you get wrong, you see a fix pretty easily. There's another little bit higher stake one. What's one level up where now this isn't, oh, we clicked send when we shouldn't have. We know what to do next time. What's this next layer we have?
This next layer is more focused on like people to people communication. Less so in the grand sense of mass emails, right? You're talking about having a lead on a call and maybe saying, "Oh yeah, we can give you this type of discount," or "Oh yeah, just send me a list of requirements." Or a big long email with everything that you want, and then I'll respond to it line item by line item. These mistakes in communication can inadvertently come back to bite you months, weeks down the road when someone would pull up one of those things, pull up the recording or the email and say, "You said this. Why am I not getting this?" When it could have been nonchalant, sort of off the cuff, not really prepared and an intentional way to communicate. These mistakes in communication, you can't really walk back as easily. And it's really dangerous when you're, I say danger, like really for your own mental health, like dangerous in the regard of now you sort of are creating your own problem that you have to deal with for some period of time. And you're setting a really dangerous precedent with that person that you're communicating with, that this is your preferred communication style, or you should expect these types of, responding to an email line item by line item, which I don't think is fun for anybody, but somehow that happens a lot in the agency world.
So I think there are divergent communication styles, right? I do tend to respond line by line to client emails, but my responses tend to be 2 or 3 words per response, right? Like, "Hey, can you do this? Done. This thing done. This thing assigned. Will come on Monday." Like, whatever, just there. Because like a lot of folks don't use project management software. They still use, I don't know, emails. And
Email.
I have my
Email.
little book, things I write
Email
down,
paper. Yeah.
or whatever, right? Okay, like I will meet you halfway, right? If you give me 6 things to do in an email, I'll put them all into Asana, or not Asana, I'll put them all into Notion. I'll link you to them if you want to see them. I know you won't. And then, like, they're being worked on. Cool. That's okay if you like to work that way. Now, my team is all over the world. Our time zones are every freaking where. I aggressively push everything async. So for me, that's cool, right? You're a little different. Also, you're dealing with stuff that's less productized than I am.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of need to be able to talk to a client when they say, "Hey, I want this." You go,
You sure?
"Do you? Is this better? What do you really want?" Like, you're building something more complex than running a minimum viable sprint ad for a go-to-market positioning execution, and you have to get some back and forth that's a little clearer. I think one thing you brought out, if you hate it and you find yourself doing it, don't. Like, one thing, I tell all my clients, I'm bad at email. Don't message me on email and expect a response in a timely fashion, because you will not get it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were to consistently have one client who responded to an email within 3 hours, they would just expect I'm always doing that. In truth, I don't. I check my email like 3 times a week because it's almost all spam, and I don't want to see most of that crap that's in my inbox.
But Trevor, you just glossed over the wild card in the deck here that you just played, which is just being very direct and transparent and honest about what their expectations should be, right? Do not email me because I won't really respond very quickly, right? In the case of, well, I said this was going to be $1,000 and now it needs to be $2,000. Like, that's not the story to share with a client when in a difficult communication, misunderstanding.
Yeah.
It's these were the things that we did as a result, and like because of XY reason, now this is actually a different engagement, or this is beyond the original scope, or show like being able to own where the fault in communication was is what will allow the communication to reopen again, trust to be rebuilt, and like just progress to be made.
Yeah. And that actually brings up a good point too, which we haven't touched on yet. Whether it's a small error in a system or a larger error in communication and in communication styles, the wrong thing to do is to try to hide the error. Right? Someone
Always. That
says,
is
"Hey,"
always the wrong
always
move.
wrong, always wrong. And it is. I'm a pretty laid back guy. People who, I mean, maybe people people who work for me tend to say I'm pretty understanding. Um, you make mistakes, I get it. That's fine. Let's try and not make the same mistake twice. If we can avoid it, that'd be better for all of us. But if you hide a mistake, you're fired. And there's no, like, I mean, knock on wood, right? Somebody who's been with me for 5 years, Ram has been with me for 3. Like, if either of them were to make a mistake and hide it, I would have to be like, sorry, like, this is not, you changed, right? They've worked with me long enough. They know, right? My
Yeah.
new employees, during your 90 days, I'll kind of give you, if you're not used to working with me and you hide something, okay, look, you don't know me. One time you'll get it. But once
Yeah.
you know me, you hide something, you're done, right? Because trust in the team has to be rock
It
solid.
has to be there. It has to be there. And I would echo, a lot of consultants or team members or potential team members haven't been in an environment necessarily before that has a culture of it's okay to own a mistake, and it's okay to make a mistake. Like, I mean, we just hired some new people last couple of weeks, and I've actively said to them, when you mess up, just let us know,
When?
right?
Yes.
It's going to happen, right? It's a fairy tale to say that it's not. So it's going to happen, but it's how you respond to it. And in the same case of miscommunication with clients, you're going to say something that might not resonate perfectly with them, right? And when it happens, right? How you react to that and address that particular mess up, blunder, whatever you call it, that's going to be much more revealing about the relationship, either internally with your team or externally with the client, than anything else really would be. Everybody's happy when everything is good and working, right? It's when there's a little bit of rockiness in the road that you get to really strengthen yourselves in the relationship, no matter who it's with.
Yeah. And it is these communication errors are, they can be hard to fix because you have to train new behavior and you have to reinforce the right behavior. Like uh, something, a communication error I spotted in my team today. We'll share stories, right? Um, so aggressively async, my company is. We share everything on Notion with our clients. I just realized the reporting decks we prepare for our clients for every call, they have not consistently been correctly put into Notion for the client to maybe find in the future. So, like, if they want them, I don't know how they'd locate them. So, like, I put them in for a couple clients who I had called with today, and then I have to speak to the person who prepared these and go like, "Hey, maybe you forgot, maybe you never knew. I don't know. You've been with me long enough where hopefully you know.
Yeah.
But after the decks are ready, they must go here so the client can find them in the future." And that is I got to watch, right? And see
Hmm.
next week. Next week, they'll probably remember, but in 2 or 3 weeks, will they still? Is this a new habit? If not, have to push again on change this behavior until it's the way you want it to be. The new PM who I just onboarded, she's now on her, I think, 5th week. And training her in all the new behaviors for crowd tamers, which is a weird agency. And she's starting to learn all of these things and is now able to tackle the day-to-day work correctly, mostly. I still have to give feedback relatively frequently. It's not because she's not smart. It's not because she doesn't know PM. It's because everything we do is unique and you have to change the behavior. That takes more time.
Yeah. And sometimes there's systems that you can make to help that behavior be hijacked and sort of go in the right direction, right?
Yeah.
But it does take a moderate amount of effort to fix communication challenges, and they are a constant in this business. It's
Yeah.
not going to be a thing that you can just blanket fix because people are weird. They ask new questions. Different things happen in the world, right? There are all these different types of environments that you are operating in as a business owner or as a leadership team, and the mistakes in communication will inevitably happen, but how you respond to them and address them directly and transparently will really ultimately be the determining factor as to whether or not that client or that team member sticks around.
Yeah.
It's your response that is the most important.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the easy fixes. Easy. That's the harder fixes. There's a third kind of screw up, which many agency owners are afraid to talk about, because this is where you get into the area where communication error you can kind of see a way through. A systems error, you change the system, theoretically things are fixed. There's the third bucket. It's the third rail, right? If you touch this one wrong, you're dead.
It's a
What's
company killer.
It's a company killer. What is the mind killer? Fear. But what is the company killer?
It's mistakes in strategy. And it's very basic, low level, foundational level strategy, right? Things like pricing models.
Hmm.
Very basic example, right? In an agency world, you might be charging per hour, or you might do fixed bid, right? Two very common, two opposite strategies. If you don't have a team, yourself included, that can accurately do time tracking to bill hourly, it's just not going to work, right?
Yeah.
Full stop. You will die as a company because you can't do the critical function required for this type of strategy. If that is your pricing model, you have to be able to adhere to that. There are a lot of other strategies like that. You see people doubling down on a niche, right? A specific industry or a specific segment of an industry. If it's too small, your audience is going to hear you. If it's too big, they're going to listen to somebody else, right? Like there's a Goldilocks zone of being niche and not niche enough. But Trevor, please add some more color to this because I know this is a thing that you have a lot to say on.
So yeah, that is. I mean, I've talked several times on agency real talk / agency accelerator / whatever else the show's been called. About 2022 taught me a bunch of the wrong lessons, and so I made a bunch of strategic choices that were, in retrospect, questionable. And 2023 nearly broke the business because I had an understanding of what my business did, and the market shifted. Maybe dumb luck I landed those clients. I don't know which for sure. What I know is the way I have to offer what I sell had to change. And it took me, one, a long time. I wasn't agile enough to really see. The timing also screwed me a bit because my business basically started to fall off holiday season of 2022. And it wasn't until end of Feb 2023 that I was like, things are supposed to have started to pick up by now. WTF. So if that happened, in Q1 of 2023, I would have spotted this sooner. But hey, whatever. Seeing there's two things that happen there. One is knowing something's wrong.
Yeah.
In my case, it was pretty easy because I was making less money every month. And then by May, I was like, well, I'm taking money out of my retirement savings to pay payroll and like emptying out all of my accounts and running up credit card bills, these sorts of things. Which is, that's not the sign of a business that's succeeding.
I was just going to say that's perfectly normal for everybody's business, right?
Yeah, that's how all businesses should run, right? That's why they call it bootstrapping, because that's what you get to eat is your bootstraps. You boil them. And seeing that go wrong is one thing, noticing it's gone wrong. But then the next thing is, what do you do to fix it? And this is what separates your, uh, let's say, higher order problem solvers from a different level of problem solver. And if you think of, I talk about hiring and seniority. Years in grade don't really equate to seniority to me, but rather the type of problem you can solve. A junior person solves a bounded fixed problem. A intermediate person solves an unbounded fixed problem, and a senior person solves an unbounded unscoped problem. And so the problem of you're not making money anymore, what's wrong, is unbounded, unscoped. Just anything could be the answer, right?
Yeah.
And why
Unknown
a lot
unknowns all
of
over
all
the
the
place.
unknowns, exactly. Why a lot of agency people won't talk about these mistakes is, one, whatever solution I made, probably unique to me. So my fix won't fix your problem. But two, like that's to keep you up at night, can't sleep, worry all the time. Like that's how I got my ulcer. Was that year gave me an ulcer. I didn't have one before that year happened. And this is where if you get it right, you survive. If you don't, you've joined the Deadpool. And it's not just company strategy, though. You can also bet big on a person, and that can kill your company too, in a
You read
couple
my
different
mind.
ways.
Yep. There was a time at a previous company where we pretty much bet the house on a very technical senior hire. And not only did that hire enable us to secure the biggest deal at the time we had ever, transacted on, but it was pure toxic culture. And everyone else at the company absolutely rejected the inclusion of this senior technical hire, which is difficult, right? Because all
That's
of a sudden that person is paired with the biggest revenue generator, at the firm.
true.
These are things that are very difficult to unwind and can absolutely kill the company. It was a strategic, eyes open decision to hire this person for this job. And we knew that it was going to be an incredibly lucrative opportunity if we could make it happen. What we didn't see at the time was the rug coming out from under us of the rest of the team really being demoralized, rejected, confused how somebody can come in and be so rude, right? So
Yeah.
just at a basic level like that.
Yeah.
Um, long story short, we ended up being okay, but that was a scary moment, being in the driver's seat thinking, hey, I got a bus full of people here, and the person that we just picked up is now berating everybody else on the bus. This
Yeah.
isn't a fun place to be anymore. There is no more party on this bus. The lights are off. Everyone is not happy. Like, so it's not only the strategy of your pricing and your industry and the services you offer, but also the people that you decide consciously to let on the bus and let on this ride with you. Is those people have just as much potential of making your success as breaking it, and that is a weight that you get to bear as the decision maker here,
As the
listening to Agency
founder,
Real Talk.
yeah, that's why we get ulcers. And I think there's the interesting thing here is if you're if you're diligent about it, you can actually move a mistake to a, I guess, lower order tier if you're clever about it, right? You can take a people problem and demote it temporarily into a people systems problem if you, for example, do a pilot project. If you learn somebody is hard to get along with, then this is a people is hard problem, right? We're having a hard time communicating with this person.
Mm-hmm.
But it's expressly, we're on a pilot. Your team could be like, dude's an a-hole.
Yeah.
You could be like, dude's an a-hole. We don't need the client as much as we need no a-holes in the company. And part before you reached mission critical. Likewise, I have one of my goals this year is to go from basically one revenue stream, well, I guess one source of leads consistently, up to 5. And I've got 3 firing now, basically. And I'm going to get 2 more, hopefully. I've got someone piloting to help build one of those 2 right now. And once I have that resilience in revenue channels coming in, that then means strategic mistakes are less risky, because if I screw up one channel completely, I record a podcast and say something so horrible that no one will ever be on a podcast with me again. I don't know what.
That's fine.
Pineapple on pizza is really okay. If I said that and meant it, which I don't because it's a war crime, people would never speak to me. I know. And you're wrong, Tom.
This is squarely in People Are Hard, second bucket. Wind that back right now.
Anyway, if I found something horrible to say like that, I have other channels to bring me business and revenue. And that then means it would be a communication / people problem if one channel starts to stop working, or could even be a systemic problem that I can easily walk back. So by building resilience in your business, by building practices in that de-risk the cost of being wrong, you make it easier to not fall into these mission critical, oh no, let's gamble the house on this throw of the dice sort of things. And a lot of what I teach with my go-to-market and positioning work with crowd tamers and with startups is, what if you reduce the cost of being wrong about positioning, which is as fundamental a business thing as you can get. If you reduce the cost to $100 in 48 hours, you've removed all of the risk around being wrong, and you can make it a systemic thing to address and fix and then promote up into your whole company.
Yeah.
That, the more you can do that as an agency owner, the more likely you are to survive, because the fewer live or die scenarios you encounter any given year, the more likelihood you are to live. Because if you've got a 50-50 shot, you will eventually lose that 50-50 break.
Yeah. There's 2 other concepts I think I want to be sure to mention here before we wrap up, and this has been a fun episode. Hope the listeners have had fun on it too. But this concept of one-way doors and two-way doors.
Ooh.
Let me set the scene, right? If you decided, hey, you know what? We should change our pricing model. Maybe we're too cheap. Do you know if you're too cheap, right? Some people value the price tag as the value of the service, whether or not it's objectively true, right? If you're going to buy a bottle of wine and you have a $100 bottle of wine and you have a $10 bottle of wine, which one do you think is better? It's a bias that exists in everything. So maybe your prices are too cheap. So you say, I want to run an experiment. The next 5 leads I talk to, I am going to double my prices and see what happens, right? That is an example of a two-way door. You can go one way and you can come back and you can say, you know what? I don't want to go that way, right? But something that's a one-way door is something like that mission critical hire, is something like your brand identity or your industry, right? Those are things that when you commit, you commit. And knowing what the things are that you are committing to and what things are that you're experimenting with are incredibly valuable buckets to put decisions in, right? I am testing my pricing model. I am deciding on my brand position, right? These are things that will just add up over time and give you a much more stable foundation to be able to throw out different experiments, to refine who it is you're talking to, how you communicate with them, how you deliver, frame all of your value. All of these things will evolve over time, but knowing which ones you're testing will be really helpful for that refinement.
Definitely. And as your agency scales beyond, your co-founders, whatever your initial small team is, the more you can give two-way door decisions to other people, the more you are freed to focus on getting the one-way door decisions right. And a lot of founders struggle with delegating, giving away, right? Speaking of your mission critical mistakes, if you can't give away any part of the day-to-day ops of your business as an agency owner, you will never scale. Done.
Period.
Right? You become the bandwidth limiter. So you're being able to give that up, trusting your team enough, making that happen it is a brand decision. You're telling your people, I trust you enough to give this. It is kind of a one-way door for you. If you give somebody and say, you own this, you can't next week be like, never mind.
Yeah.
Right? You own this. It's your thing. If you take it away from them, they're going to feel like they screwed up.
Yeah.
You're going to demoralize that team member. So, but it's internally, you do have more capacity to walk things back, I think, than you do with the paying client. But it is like getting those lower risk, easier to revert decisions out away from you is the highest impact thing you can do when you are a small agency growing. Like the reason I've hired 3 people and I'm recruiting a 4th right now, 3 people and I'm recruiting a 4th. Nope, still did it wrong. There we go. Recruiting a 4th is my team was down to 3 people. Then my client list went from 5 to 15. Like we can still service all those clients, except my brain can't do it. Right? I drop details. And
details matter.
Getting stuff put out to other team members of like my new PM I've mentioned now, she's the one going through the call recordings and being like, here's what we said we deliver. And I'm like, I forgot half of that already. Right? That's okay. Somebody else owns that. Make sure stuff gets delivered. Cool. That's important. It's also really important when something goes wrong, ask yourself, is it a two-way mistake? Is it a one-way mistake? Is this a systems error, a people error, or a strategic error? And then respond appropriately, right? Don't get super bothered about a systemic error. It's a chance for us to learn, how do we make the system better? How do we walk this one back as much as we can? A strategic error, stay up all night, right? Worry over that one. Burn the candle at both ends until you solved it. That's acceptable. Losing your mind over an email going out wrong, don't.
It's not worth it.
Don't.
No. And I think, I'd love to talk, maybe not today, but about locus of control and that perception is reality type of thing. A little philosophical tinge maybe on that, but one of my mentors shared with me this phrase that I use often, and I will share it here. I don't know if I've already shared it, but good leaders know when to help. Great leaders know when to get out of the way. And I think that really nails the delegation point that Trevor was making earlier. And like, it's fine to help. And when you know that someone needs help, absolutely help them. But if somebody's getting comfortable and they're hitting a groove and you realize their biggest hindrance to hitting more of a groove is you, it's okay to step aside. You can you can have, the proud moment of just giving them the keys, letting them go. Because that's really a sign for you and your team that they're ready, right? If they're trying to go, sometimes the best thing you can do is just let them go. And by that I mean take on more responsibility, do a better job.
Don't fire them. Not let them go that way.
Don't fire them. That's not what I mean. But
and that
you get the point.
Yeah. Cool. I think those are the types of mistakes, the blunders. I think it is every agency does all of these frequently. Every company, not even agency, every company.
Yeah, it's a company thing. It's not unique to an agency in any way.
You get 3 people together and they'll have made 4 mistakes before lunch. That's fine.
Sure.
It's okay. Own up to it. Move on. I think that's our episode for this session. It's always a pleasure to get to talk deep thinking thoughts with you, Tom.
Sure.
That's what we should call this. Deep thinking
thoughts. Huh.
Your moment of zen. There we go.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. What happens if we change the name of the podcast for a 4th time?
Yeah. Who would know?
Sounds like a error in the system to me. It's something we can just change.
Maybe an error in the system. All right, Tom. Anybody who wants to find you online, where do they go look you up?
Go to X-Ray Automation. On YouTube, we are really picking up some steam there. So if you want to see the latest and greatest, including maybe an early release of our workflow designer course, you might want to
Ooh,
check out our YouTube.
check out the YouTube.
What about you,
Yeah.
Trevor? Where are they going to find you?
You can find me at crowdtamers.com. I am also rejiggering and scaling up my course. I'm adding in some new material on Friday. I'll put some new stuff in. I am changing the pricing model, and I am beginning a completely new launch acquisition system for it. Speaking of strategic decisions, I'm going from flat fee for lifetime access to a substantially lower fee for monthly access to the course and the community. So
Ooh la
making a
la.
big change on that. I know, right? And it's because one, I've had found it like the lifetime access is pricey. Two, I'm pretty sure I can sell the course without going on sales calls if I lower the price to monthly. And three, one of my missions as a founder is to help 1,000 founders make $1 million a year. And they won't, most of them, be my clients, but I should be able to help teach them and scale them through there. So that's it. That's a wrap. As always, anybody who found this information useful on YouTube or on Spotify or on Google Play or iTunes or whatever the other ones are, subscribe. Give us a shout. Let us know because we're kind of just shouting into the void. Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.